The balance breakdown is back in your life. Myself and the great man Harry Powell is here as always. Harry, I hope you're doing well today, sir. How are you keeping?
Grand now, thanks very much. Excited for this one. Some interesting talking points. We'll dive in when you're ready.
Yeah, let's dive in straight away. Let's hit up the main event straight away. That was Brendan Allen and Paul Craig. Went at it in that's bad. Was that a bad Scottish accent? It was. Sorry. I won't do that. No more accents. Brendan Allen, Paul Craig, in the main event in the middleweight division was a big one for Paul Craig, having moved down successfully to the middleweight division in his last fight. He took out Andre Muniz in impressive fashion, but was unable to do that against Brendan Allen on Saturday night. One thing I wanted to see in this fight, Harry, was that grappling exchange, and we got to see a couple of them, a couple of pretty exciting ones, two really, really good grapplers there. But from the starting bell, I don't know whether the writing was on the wall is too harsh of an assessment for Paul Craig, but it just looked like Brendan Allen was that little bit better in all departments when they went at it. And, the end result was a rear naked choke win for Brendan Allen. That's a big feather in his cap, not only to go out there and beat Paul Craig, but to go out there and submit him as well. Harry, very, very impressive from Brendan Allen overall. And the story continues for him up the middleweight division.
Yeah, it really does. I think this was a big spot for both guys, right? It was a big spot for Paul Craig, who had obviously...
There you go.
Had dropped down from like heavyweight to middleweight to try and, I guess, to try and sort of reignite the career a little bit, right? He'd garnered a name, especially in Europe, in that light heavyweight division, but was just a level below the elite tier of that division, and tried to make a run where maybe some of the grappling of the middleweight division guys was more suited to his skill set. But Brendan Allen, it was a huge fight because it has felt like over the last little while, we've been waiting for Brendan Allen to sort of put it all together, right? And really, really come out and give us this masterful display. And whilst he's riding an 8-fight win streak now, there were moments in some of the fights that he has managed to win where we were asking questions, right? We were saying, well, when's this going to come right? When are we going to see it all sort of proliferate together in a main event spot, in a big spot? And Brendan Allen, this was a really big spot for him, and he really, really delivered. I think to your point on the writing on the wall, one of the first notes I put in the first round is that Paul Craig really, really needs a jab. And in this fight specifically, he needed a jab because Brendan Allen is the more athletic fighter, is the more explosive fighter, and is certainly the fighter that's quicker off the mark when throwing his shots. And if you're Paul Craig, similar to what Jake Matthews tried to employ a little bit against Michael Morales, and we'll obviously talk about that in a second, was if you jab and jab consistently and have a cultured jab and a matured jab, a jab that goes forward, a jab that goes backward, and a jab that meets a fighter in the pocket, it's far easier to dissuade them from leaping into things because they know that they're going to get clipped, right? And you can start to gain respect with that jab. Well, the very first exchange of the fight, Paul Craig just waited and waited. And when Brendan Allen broke through the pocket and landed, I think it was a right hand, there was then a grappling exchange that sort of led up to the first takedown. And that's not the recipe for success here for Paul Craig. There was just too much hesitancy and too much willingness to counterattack from Paul Craig. And I know that Paul has managed to make a career out of counterattacking in a lot of ways, specifically when it hits the mat. But Brendan Allen was too slick. I thought overarchingly, and obviously we can get to the nuts and bolts, but overarchingly, his willingness to use damage to open up superior grappling positions was unbelievable in this fight. And I just thought that you sort of hit the nail on the head. He was just a little bit better everywhere,
Yeah, and we're talking about Brendan Allen here, and we're saying that, we're waiting for this, and others might come on and say, well, look, in his last 6 wins before this, he was picking up finishes and stuff like that. But, if you're really watching those fights, there was some questions around those fights. Look at some, with all due respect, some questions around the opposition. Obviously, a good win against Andre Muniz, another good win against Bruno Silva, but stylistically, that was a favorable matchup for a guy like Brendan Allen. And here, when I was coming in, I was looking at the gaps in between two of these guys' skill set, and you would think that, you know, Brendan Allen would have had the advantage on the feet, and it looked like he kind of did. Obviously established the jab early, was landing heavy on Paul Craig, who couldn't get anything going, and never really seems to get anything going too much on the feet either. Remember, a lot of his wins come off the back of him taking some damage and snatching an opportunistic submission. But that being said, Paul Craig did look a shadow of himself from what we've seen at middleweight when he took on Andre Muniz. I wonder how you feel about that. I mean, you know, you're a big proponent of not weight cutting. You know, Paul Craig looked in fantastic condition in this fight, looked trim, ready for the middleweight division. But, you know, there's a difference, I feel, Harry, you know, in coming down and moving down to middleweight for one fight, but then maintaining that weight for a prolonged period of time, and how much that takes out of somebody. And I'm wondering, are we looking at a little bit of a case of that with Paul Craig here? But that's not to take away from Brendan Allen's performance at all in the slightest, because yes, he was better than him on the feet at stages, but also proved that he's very willing to hang. And this is to nobody's surprise, really, in the grappling department, and showcased some fantastic scrambles, got himself out of a pretty nasty kind of a calf slicer as well. I'm very curious to hear your breakdown on that escape as well, where you kind of have to fight fire with fire and to stay calm in those situations. And I think the story coming out of this fight is basically, you know, we can get a little bit excited about Brendan Allen, and he's starting to fully showcase his abilities, and obviously he's going to have bigger tests coming along the middleweight division, but we need new contenders to emerge at 185. And you know, based off this performances and past performances, it seems that we've got somewhat of a contender coming in to challenge the top 5 in the 185-pounder division. A lot to unpack there, Harry. Please unpack it in your own terms.
Sure. So I think the first point, there's probably 2 bits to it. I agree entirely that it's not very easy, but it's much easier to find the motivation for you to say, cool, I'm going to drop 20 pounds or whatever it is for this one fight camp and this one fight, and we're going to see how it goes. And because it's fresh and it's new and it takes this extreme level of focus and dedication and sort of this strict regimen in order for you to get your body ready to make that cut, it's far easier to do it once than it is to do it 5 times. It's far easier to do it once than it is to do it twice. Because when you come out of that weight cut and you allow yourself to sort of rise back up maybe a week, 2 weeks, where you just sort of allow your body to naturally fall where it does, there's a mental fatigue, I think, that hangs over you, where you really realize the effort that you put in order to make the weight. And when it comes to Paul Craig making the weight, like, I've not spoken to him, you've not spoken to him, and so it's difficult for us to make obviously a solid assessment on where he is from a weight cutting perspective and how difficult it was. But I will say that he didn't look gassed at any point.
Yeah, and I wouldn't think that I wouldn't have seen any signs to me that it would have been detrimental for him, or it was a tough cut for him. He looked excellent. He looked in the shape of his life. But, you know, I think what we have to kind of do here is base that opinion off his fight performance as well, which just wasn't there. It just doesn't seem to be there on Saturday night. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the second half is Brendan Allen is a very different type of grappler from Andre Muniz, right? Muniz is somebody that wants to work to a position, hold that position, and very slowly edge his way towards, almost like a boa constrictor, work his way towards a submission, whether that's a head and arm triangle, whether it's a choke from the back, whatever it is. It's very rare that we see him jump on opportunistic positions, 1, submissions 2. And I think that works in Paul Craig's favor because you have time for everything, right? You can really feel what is happening with everything. And there was a couple of moments in the performance against Brendan Allen where you just see that the difference in grappling style is dramatic. There was one moment in the third round, or the second round, sorry, where Paul Craig had almost double butterflies. It wasn't quite, but it wasn't a close guard either. It was like 1 foot pummeled in and 1 foot on the hip. And generally you'd see guys either take a step back or use their hands to address those feet. Brendan Allen just hip switched really, really aggressively and found himself in a chest-to-chest half guard. And that's just not something you'd have seen Andre Muniz do. And so Paul Craig was safe against Andre Muniz if it was, if the same situation had occurred. But against Brendan Allen, he was more willing to be athletic, more willing to be explosive in order to use some of his style to sort of gain that leverage and gain that advantage in those positions. And I think both of those things sort of resulted in where we were early on. And I also, as a final third thought on the weight cutting stuff, there is I think there's an element where Paul Craig has been grappling long enough that when he ties up with a fella and he's like, oh, fuck, this guy's better than me. And there's a level of break, I think, mentally that happens immediately there. Paul Craig certainly was in that calf slice. Let me tell you, that calf slicer
was deep.
Very tight.
Before you explain that, I'm glad you brought that up as well, because there was clinch exchanges at the start of the first round where just Brendan Allen looked way more stronger in the clinch as well. And I kind of felt that as well, where, it kind of seemed watching on that, what I figured, and I'm sure what Paul Craig figured, was like, oh shit, that's one less avenue that I can go down now. And that's quite a big avenue that he had to go down to try and win this fight, and which was taken away from him from Brendan Allen. But please, I mean, ever since this whole exchange happened, it was like, I cannot wait to come on and talk to the Welsh Wizard about this calf slicer and the impressive nature of Brendan Allen and how he escaped it in attacking a leg lock of his own. Please break down that sequence, please.
Sure, no problem. So Paul Craig was using something called a scorpion guard. That's what John Danaher will call it. The 10th Planet gentlemen have a slightly different name for it, and they call it the electric. No, it's not the electric chair. I've forgotten what they call it. Anyway, lockdown. They call it. There you go.
There you go.
And essentially what that means is he's wrapping both of his legs around one of Brendan Allen's legs, and it makes it very, very difficult for Brendan Allen to progress up from a chest-to-chest half to like a mount or a passing position or whatever it is. And you can use it if you know how to use it. You can use it to like lift the leg up, and you can drag them back down, and you can start to off balance them, all sorts of things, whatever. It's certainly late-stage guard retention from Paul Craig. But what he did really interestingly is he began to sit up past the line of Brendan Allen's near side lat, and he scooped with an underhook, scooped up the calf of Brendan Allen at the ankle. So he'd managed to use the lockdown or the scorpion guard, whatever, to bring Brendan Allen's leg towards him and then start to tear up this calf slicer. Now, in order to transition from the lockdown to the calf slicer, you have to triangle your legs, because essentially all a calf slicer is your shin running along it doesn't actually do anything to the calf. What happens is, if you hit it perfectly, is your shin is pressing into the back of your partner's knee. And as you pull the ankle over your own calf, you're driving your shin into the back of your partner's knee. So essentially you're pushing the kneecap and tearing the joints of the knee, tearing the ligaments of the knee as you're pressing the knee upwards. They're very, very painful. And when you get in them, they're very, very difficult to escape because the rotation of your knee and the rotation of your hip is very, very limited, right? So
I would have learned that position on the calf slicer from when your opponent is down in turtle position on hands and knees, and you're slipping your leg in, kind of like you're kind of trying to lock down a kind of a half guard position from somebody's back, and then you actually just roll through and you can grab the calf slicer. So I'd not seen it from lockdown position all that much. I was very impressed by that as well. That's kind of the basic level of learning a calf slicer. It's probably one of the first calf slicer techniques that you will probably learn if you're in there in the gi or doing no gi or whatever you prefer.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. It's an old 10th Planet roll through from a truck. And so Brendan Allen for sure was like, I'm not tapping this calf slicer. And then Paul Craig really started to pull it on, and Brendan was like, oh fuck, this is tight as balls. And the interesting thing that Brendan Allen did was he attempted to use his secondary leg to kick the hand off his own ankle, right? But when he realized that he was too crowded, his chest and his hips were too crowded in space for him to actually angle his leg to kick it off. Initially, I think what he tried to do was lean over to the left-hand side of his body, or the left-hand side of Paul Craig's body at the same time, in order to gain the space to scorpion kick the hand off his own ankle. But he saw Paul Craig's leg essentially in a calf slice of its own, right? and so just pulled on his own calf slice. Essentially, double calf slice is not something we've seen in MMA much,
No,
sure.
not at all.
But just to distract Paul Craig for a second, and that allowed the space for him to scorpion kick his own leg out. But that scored, if we were scoring the fight, that scored very highly for me, very, very highly, because if Brendan Allen was not able to get out in the next 3 to 5 seconds, I think we could have seen a Paul Craig first round win by calf slice. Like, let me tell you, that was a shit position for Brendan Allen to be in. You're not going to be able to roll out of that position because the rotation of your knee is so limited. You can't like wrestlers turn out of it because you'll blow your own knee out. Like, it's a tough position to have found himself in, specifically that setup for a calf slicer. So yeah, incredible in the moment thinking and problem solving from Brendan Allen, but also a really creative and intuitive setup from Paul Craig.
It's very good. And that's what Paul Craig was so dangerous on. When you can get Dominic Cruz to react the way he reacted in that exchange, I mean, you know that you're seeing something special there. That's what we all wanted to see. Like, for that moment alone, you know, these two elite level grapplers in that position where, man, it just a split second either way it could have went for Paul Craig, but it didn't. Brendan Allen survived, got through, escaped, went on to get that rear naked choke in round 3, kind of somewhat drowned Paul Craig as the fight went on and got the win. So beggars the question, what next for Brendan Allen, Harry? What would you like to see him? How would you like to see him progress up the 185-pound division? We're still not in too much of a rush at 27 years of age, which is crazy. He's been around for a minute, starting to come into his own and looking like a real player at 185. Who do you got him with?
So I want to push him. I think, you know, he's ranked 7 now, right? And for me, it's either Marvin Vettori or it's Jared Cannonier. I don't really want to see the Robert Whittaker just yet, because in the same vein, like the Robert Whittaker sort of meat grinder that he is at this point, I don't necessarily need to see that right away. And if, you know, Dricus is obviously fighting for the title, so we don't need that. Izzy is out for a little while, so I don't need that. I would have loved to have seen Brendan Allen, Israel Adesanya if that fight wasn't, you know, if Izzy wasn't taking a break. But I think Marvin Vettori, because he's got really good defensive wrestling and he's got solid boxing fundamentals. And so we're going to see whether Brendan has been able to put everything together on the feet and mix it in with the grappling. Jared Cannonier can defend the takedowns very athletically. Able when he's defending takedowns, but maybe not as technical as Marvin Vettori when he's defending takedowns. And he can also hit like a fucking truck. So I'm really interested in both of those guys. I don't really mind which one it is. It seems like Vettori's been out for a hot minute, and so maybe we can chuck Vettori in there, because Brendan Allen took 0 damage in that fight. Maybe he took a little bit of damage from that calf slicer, but that's nothing that's going to, you know, impede him from fighting for a significant period of time. And so, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Brendan Allen turn around quite quickly if he's happy to.
Yep, absolutely. I am looking forward to seeing for Paul. Maybe we'll spend a couple of moments. What would you like to see? Do you think he goes back up to 205? Do you think he should go back up to 205? Maybe we don't have to match make him with anyone in particular, but what would you like to see for Paul going forward?
I'd like to see Paul reevaluate what he's doing this for.
It's a fair assessment.
Because, you know, when he was starting his career, he lost 2 fights. He was starting his UFC career, he lost 2 fights. And he famously said in an interview, if I lose the next one, I'm not going to be in the UFC anymore. And that was 5 years ago. Or 6 years ago, whatever it was. And so, you know, he's managed to string a fantastic career in the UFC from those couple of losses that he took. Now I think is a time, you know, when you're having to, we talked about Frankie Edgar. Now it's not the same thing, obviously, but we talked about Frankie Edgar when he dropped to 135 in order to try and be quote unquote competitive with these guys, because the problem that he deluded himself to is that weight cutting was the issue and that these featherweights were just too big, when actually it was just that Frankie had gotten old and the fight game had surpassed him. I think Paul Craig, whilst he has a brilliant style to watch, it's not functional in modern MMA. You know, Brendan Allen proved very realistically and very dominantly over those 2 rounds and 58 seconds that just looking to go wrist to wrist on your partner and keep them in a close guard and try and snatch submissions, it's just not functional in modern mixed martial arts, and this is the type of result that we get. And Paul Craig.
It's a shame that it wasn't in Scotland on a fight night card, wasn't it? It's a shame that after you talked about all of that, you talked about 7-year service to the UFC, and here he is getting fucking submitted in the UFC Apex in front of 50 people who don't really give a shit. I think that's what annoys me the most, is that, guys who have been such good servants to the UFC for many, many years, are not getting these opportunities. And okay, look, if you don't give them an opportunity and you put them in front of another crowd, fair enough. But to have them in the Apex, and I mean, look at Anderson Silva retired in the Apex. I mean, I think that has to be said. And I think these guys deserve a little bit better. And at the very least, even no matter what way the result would have gone, to give that man the opportunity to come out in front of what would be surely a boisterous Scottish crowd to kind of compete there is the least that a guy like Paul Craig deserves, in my opinion, at the very least. Anyway, Harry, as we move on to the co-main event, unless you have any other final thoughts.
No, sure. I mean, look, I'm sure Paul Craig wouldn't have wanted to take that fight in Scotland, given if he'd know the result, right? I don't think he would have wanted to be dominated in front of a Scottish crowd and then finished. But I think it would be nice, and it won't happen, right? It won't happen. But it would be nice if the next European card, if they're going to do 2 next year, do 1 in Scotland and do 1 in Ireland, and allow Paul Craig to, if he's going to retire, allow him to retire on that Scottish card. It won't happen, right? They're going to do both in the O2 in London, obviously. And the UFC
no Irish card or no Scottish card. Yeah. Like, I mean, the chances of it, yeah, it's a kind of a thing we've been talking about with certain fight announcements and everything like that. Yeah, it's interesting to see some peculiar decision making happening right now. But look at the decisions. Decision making was what the judges had to do in the co-main event, Harry, as it went all the way. Unanimous decision win for Michael Morales, who moved to 16-0 and picked up a good win over Jake Matthews. And I say picked up a good win, Harry, over Jake Matthews, because Jake Matthews fought really well, and he fought. I think Michael Morales fought and beat the best version of Jake Matthews at this stage right now. A guy who hasn't really found his form inside the octagon each and every time he stepped in there. But he came in here, and he came in with a ballsy game plan as well. He chose to stand and bang with Michael Morales and chose to kind of try and what's the phrase I'm looking for? Try and outscore him in terms of, landing more shots. He came here with a kind of a combination heavy game plan in the boxing realm, but kind of played into Michael Morales' game plan a little bit too much. And we'll discuss Michael Morales. I feel I think he needed more output in this fight, and I think that made it a closer fight than what it was. We can talk about that as well. But your overall assessment of the fight before we get into the nuts and bolts.
I thought it was really well matched. Because, in the preview show, we said that if the right Jake Matthews turns up, this is the perfect test for Michael Morales. And if he doesn't, it'll be a blowout. And it was not a blowout at all. It was a very close fight. Well, not a very close fight. It was a good fight. It was an entertaining fight. I think Michael Morales will take some massive lessons from this fight. And I also think Jake Matthews should not be too disheartened from this performance either, because I actually thought not only did he fight well, but I also thought his ballsy game plan was the right one. Because if he had managed to show the level of output and the level of intensity and the level of venom that he did in the last 2.5 minutes of the third round, in the whole of the third round and half of the second round, he might have won this fight. I think Michael Morales stole the first 2 rounds with the flurries at the ends of the rounds. He hurt Jake Matthews badly twice in both the ends of round 1 and the ends of round 2. And then by the ends of round 3, it was Jake Matthews that was coming on strong. And so it was just a really, really well-matched fight overall. I think if I could just critique Michael Morales just slightly.
Yeah, do you know what? Let's just go straight into it. Let's go in and see what you've seen in the fights here as well. I think maybe just to kind of set you up a little bit, your assessment and my assessment of Jake Matthews is exactly the same. I thought he went in, fought the perfect game plan, fought an excellent fight. I have some critiques around Michael Morales and his output on the fight. And it would lead me worried for him getting too much of a push in the division, but we can talk about that a little bit. When the actual game plans that these two guys kind of possess going in here, Morales was looking to try and come out there, land the more impactful shots in my eyes on the counter. and was happy to play second fiddle and allow Jake Matthews to move forward and kind of use Jake Matthews' momentum against him. And obviously those flurries at the end of the rounds, very smart and showing some experience and good fight IQ to lay it on Jake Matthews in those moments, because those were very, very close rounds and somewhat tough to score as well, Harry.
Yeah, so I didn't score any of them. I didn't. I was just watching it to watch it, just to analyze the movements. But for Michael Morales, I think he has some incredible attributes to his game. His footwork's pretty nice. I really like the way he takes his head off the center line when he's entering the pocket. He's got blistering hands when he's throwing a 1-2. So fast that 1-2 comes. He's got a really thudding right check hook that he ends combinations with, and he also tries to land when fighters are coming in. And something he really has, which I really, really like, is he has the cerebral awareness when a fighter's blastering into the pocket to find the shot. There was a couple of times when he landed an inside low kick on Jake Matthews as he was bursting into the pocket. One just really off balance Jake Matthews, and one, I say dropped him. It's not dropped in the sense that he was like drastically hurt and wobbled and was on the floor, whatever, but it off balanced him enough that he fell to a knee, right? To be able to see through the chaos of that swarm and then land a perfectly timed kick when the leg is stepping in, that's gorgeous stuff, right? That's really, really high level fight IQ. But then the things that frustrate me are he falls in love with the flying knee. We saw the flying knee 4 times in the fight and it landed 0 times. That's a high octane, that's a high energy output move that you need to set up properly. And he didn't set it up properly once. There was a couple of moments, one in the first round when he took a collar tie and just threw like 5 uppercuts in succession. Guess what? That's not going to work, right? What's going to happen is you move, and we'll talk about it in the, I've forgotten which fighter it was. There was Christian Leroy Duncan. Christian Leroy Duncan uses that collar tie to elbow gorgeously. Collar tie to elbow to uppercut to collar tie to elbow to uppercut. Used it great.
Classic Muay Thai, so it is.
Right. And if Michael Morales had been smarter with some of the shot selection when he had Jake Matthews backed up, crowded and hurt, he might have finished him, or he might have caused him some significant damage that would have depleted the output in the coming rounds. And I think the thing that I would like to promote in Michael Morales is keep all of the attributes that are amazing in your game, but let's dial everything else up a little bit. Let's try and grapple a touch more. We had a couple of shots that we never really committed to. Why not? Try and take him down. Let's see what happens down there.
And I think you could have the same criticism for Jake Matthews in this 100%. Regard as well. You know what I'm saying? I think both of these guys kind of got really comfortable in kind of engrossing in somewhat of a boxing fight, really. To be honest, they were happy enough to just strike at range. And I think that definitely suited, obviously, given the results, suited Morales way more than it suited Matthews. And I think if anybody was in a position to need to change it up, it definitely was Matthews, in my opinion, anyway, Harry.
I agree. And I thought that the adjustment he made to essentially just bite down on his mouthpiece in the last 2.5 minutes and throw big shots, he gained the respect from Morales. And he really, really gained it, because Morales before was, you could see it in his body movements. He was like, one big shot and this guy's going away. One big shot and this guy's going away. At the end of the first round, you could see as he walked away, he was like, if I had 15 more seconds, that was done. At the end of the second round, he was like, okay, this guy's good, but if I had 15 more seconds, this guy is done. And he's looking for the big shot, looking for the big shot. In that last 2.5 minutes when Matthews said, look, big boy, I'm still fucking here. Yeah. And he put down on his own mouthpiece and he was throwing the bigger shots and he was really landing impactfully. He believed enough that as he entered the pocket, 3 or 4 shots might miss, but each and every time he was finding something. There was a really nice overhand left that clipped the jaw. There was a right hook that came to the liver. There was a big overhand right during one of the swarms. And he was so content with throwing everything with power and everything with intent, knowing that one of a 4, 5, 6 punch combo was going to land, and Morales wasn't going to be able to catch him in the middle of it.
Looking back at Morales' previous fights, and I believe in the Max Griffin fight, he did start to slow down, if I remember correctly, in that fight. And I'm wondering, was he carrying that thought into this fight with Jake Matthews, where, you know, you're saying, and what your assessment is exactly right, and he must have been thinking to himself, at the end of the round 1 and round 2, that another 15 seconds and I would have had him out of there. Well, you know what? You had 4 minutes and 45 fucking seconds before that where you could have put it on him too. But there seemed to be that level of hesitancy for him to do that. Maybe because he's a big boy. He's a big boy for a welterweight, Harry. He's huge. And, I would, with his explosiveness and his power, what we've seen, and this is not him. This is to kind of his level of build and size as well. We've seen other fighters that do kind of let go and fire off, do have a tendency to tire a little bit quicker. So maybe he's just trying to find a fine balance in that level of output mixed with the level of cardio that's needed to get through 3 rounds. Because, as you said, Jake Matthews, obviously he must have made that read as well, Harry, because he decided to put on the gas in the last 2 or 3 minutes. And Jesus, it was super, super competitive. Probably the best spell of both fighters in all 3 rounds, to be honest. To kind of, and it wasn't enough, obviously, in the end. But, a couple of things. Is Michael Morales ready for a big push yet? Or do we match him up similarly enough here with a well-known name and a tough test again? I know me personally, maybe before you give your opinion, I think we give him an even enough test again for the next one. I don't think we're pushing him to the rankings just yet. What about you?
I have 2 options.
Okay.
The justification for my first option, and it won't happen, but the justification for my first
I love how you justify now, because I'm going to come in 2-footed if I don't agree.
is what Morales needs is, because for me, the output actually comes, the fear of the output comes because everything is thrown at 90%. He needed in that fight a Trevor Whitman to say, big man, just throw everything at 60. Just throw everything at 60. And when it comes, you'll know, right? When it comes, you'll know. But that didn't happen, right? Everything was at 90. And so what he needs in the next one is he needs a really high level, fundamental fighter that will punish him if everything is thrown at 90. And so that name is Jack Della Maddalena.
Oh, sweet baby Jesus. We're pushing him straight up into it here. My goodness. That is a tasty fight though. I do like it. Jesus, is it like yeah, what's your next one? I'll assess the 2 of them. Let me hear the next one.
The next one is Rinat Fakhretdinov.
Oh, Jesus Christ. It's like a double-edged sword here. Those are 2 fantastic fights. I feel, based off what I seen last Saturday night, I feel if you put him in there against Jack Della Maddalena, I feel that he's like a much, much better version of the fighter that Jake Matthews is. And I feel that Jack Della Maddalena, let me finish, Jack Della Maddalena would probably, I'd be very confident of him punishing him and getting him out there. Now that can happen. We could do that, or we can maybe give him a Fakhretdinov, which is just as tough a fight. Think he has the advantage in the striking department against a guy like Fakhretdinov, in my opinion. Anyway, I feel Fakhretdinov offers a little bit of a different look in terms of wanting to close the distance and take the fight down. So now we're going to see him getting tested in these grappling exchanges and see how his cardio goes up. And I think that is a kind of a fight that I would want to see for Michael Morales, rather than throwing him up in there against Jack Della Maddalena, which is a fight I feel, if we stay going the way we're going here in the welterweight division, I think it's a fight that's inevitable. It's going to happen eventually, Harry. So I think 2 solid options there. If I was to pick one of the 2, I think it would be Fakhretdinov at this stage as well. But, go ahead.
The only reason I would offer to chuck him up there, right, is because he needs to learn. Yeah. And there are 2 chances for him to learn. One is the contract comes through and it says Jack Della Maddalena. And it would probably say UFC Fight Night main event something, right? Whatever. Probably that's what happens, right? It's co-main event here. He gets a win, looks good against Matthews. It's likely they're going to push him into a Fight Night main event. Fine, whatever. He has a chance in those 6 to 8 weeks to learn. In that camp, he has a chance to learn. He has a chance to take that fight very, very seriously. And his coaches and the people around him can say, look, now we're getting serious, big boy. Now we've got the real names, right? Now we've got a chance to really burst our name into the rankings and really make a splash. And that's one way. The second way he learns is when the cage door closes, right? And can I see Jack Della Maddalena getting caught? Yeah, we've seen it. We've seen it before. Michael Morales hits really hard. Do I think that can be a competitive fight if Morales makes leaps in the camp? Yeah, absolutely, I do. The reason why I offer Rinat Fakhretdinov is because Fakhretdinov can be in a war, and when he's in a war, he gets clipped. And I also think we need to see the grappling tested of Michael Morales, and so Rinat Fakhretdinov.
That's it, yeah, and also with Jack Della Maddalena, I'm wondering, and not that the UFC might think this way at all, because they could very well put on that fight, but we had Jack Della Maddalena fighting down the last two of his fights, so I think, you know, for taking fights at short notice, and doing that, you know, he definitely deserves to maybe get a ranked opponent next, but
I do agree.
Like I said, look, that's a fantastic matchup. We're not talking about politics here. We're talking about matchups, and that is both are fantastic matchups. That being said, fantastic matchups is not really what we're going to be talking about with Chase Hooper and Jordan Leavitt, to be honest. Let's be real here. Not really a great contest. I mean, look, I get a mini rant, Harry, to you off camera here, to anybody that's listening, that I could not understand why, you know, Jordan Leavitt decided to close the distance and initiate a clinch to try and take this fight down within 20 seconds of this fight, where, you know, you're playing straight into Chase Hooper's hands. Like you said, he did it and won the grappling exchanges, but, you know, you can win grappling exchanges and still have the same result of what we've seen, and that was a first round rear naked choke win for Chase Hooper, an important win. And, you know, I mean, my only assessment of this fight, and it's a harsh one, is that Jordan Leavitt is in the UFC to compete in fights like this, to give fighters like Chase Hooper an opportunity to get a win under his belt. And that's exactly what we've seen. That's what the UFC were trying to muster up, and it happened on Saturday night. And I don't think that like too many lessons can be learned from the actual fight, from the result itself. I mean, Chase Hooper is filling out a little bit. We've seen that, you know, he's on the weights. He's like yourself, Harry. He's on the weights there, lifting weights good. And you know, what was your assessment on this fight overall? Am I being a little bit too harsh of an assessment on this overall?
So I think the only thing I would disagree with slightly is that he's here. I think now he's morphed into, Jordan Leavitt is now morphed into the guy that they give to the guy that they need to get a win, right? Paddy Pimblett and now Chase Hooper. On the engaging in 20 seconds, Chase came out and landed a right hand immediately. And it felt obvious that Chase wanted to try and set a pace striking. Jordan Leavitt is not a striker. He's a grappler. And so in that immediate chaos, I can sort of see the reason why he chose to grapple. I think there were ample attempts when Chase managed to get on top. Jordan Leavitt managed to get back to his feet, and then there was just ample time for him to break away and really reassess whether he wanted to continue to grapple or not to grapple. Because the moment that we saw double ankle locks being attempted, I'm like, lads, what are we doing? Like, what the fuck is going on? And then, you know, Chase managed to rise, get to Jordan Leavitt's back body lock. He inverts, looks for leg locks, and Chase does the right thing when you're looking for leg locks in MMA, and that's he took the back and sunk in the choke really, really quickly. Look, it wasn't a great fight. It wasn't a great performance by either, because Chase Hooper was losing those grappling exchanges and was having to use close guard armbars. Like, close guard armbars in male MMA in 2023. Like, what the fuck are we talking about? Do you know what I mean? Like, what genuinely, what the fuck are we talking about? And so, yeah, it wasn't a great fight. I'm happy. You know, you kind of got to be happy for Chase Hooper. Like, he's clearly working hard. He just clearly does not have the skills necessary in order to compete in such an insanely stacked division like it is here in the UFC.
Yeah, see, that's what I mean. I don't mean to be ragging on him. Like, really good character, seems like a really nice individual, but it's like we're just delaying the inevitable beatdown that he's going to get when he's put in there with a serious competitor. It's like you're in the UFC lightweight division. There's only so many gimme fights that you can get in a division like that as well, you know. So, you know, this is the thing about UFC signing on talents like this when they're not quite ready yet. And, you know, we can talk a little bit about Peyton Talbott, because I think Sean's assessment on the big podcast was correct when it comes to Talbott as well. But look, back on to Hooper and Leavitt. Not too much to kind of break down. I think you did quite a good job at that. Maybe we can, I've kind of alluded to what could be next with Chase Hooper, but like, we don't want to see this kid thrown to the wolves at all.
No, I mean, I was looking through the rankings and I was trying to make a pick, and like, there's just nobody.
Mm-hmm.
There's just nobody that I pick for him to beat. Like, the name I landed upon in the end was Faris Ziam, because Ziam will skirt the outside of the cage. He'll try and throw loads of kicks, and that gives Chase a chance to catch a kick, run him into that cage, and try and take him down. Like, but fuck me, like, there's people like Vince Pichel. Vince Pichel destroys Chase.
Yeah. Like, I mean, that's I don't want to see. I don't want to see that. I think we've seen it already in the UFC, Harry. With Chase Hooper, and look at it. Yeah, like, we can try and buttercoat it any way we want, or else we can just be real about what we're looking at here. And it's just, to me, a guy that has some serious limitations, and a guy that is on a very dangerous and a prickly and full of potholes kind of a road into the lightweight division. And
it reminds me of Edmund Shabazian. Edmund Shabazian had the skills at the time. He was just pushed a little bit too quickly. But what's going to happen is that level of beatdown. What's going to happen is they're going to put him in again. Like, I was thinking, like, even Steve Garcia or somebody like that just mauls him, like, again, or whatever. I think they've already fought or something. But I was then like, what about Jim Miller? Jim Miller, fucking.
Oh my God, Jesus, don't. Jim Miller with full on Lyme disease would like, I know he's cured now, but put in Jim there, full on Lyme disease, and he'd probably beat Chase Hooper. I mean, look at that, 24 years of age. He has plenty of time to do it, but unfortunately, the landscape in the UFC is not going to allow him the time to do it properly or appropriately. And yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Chase Hooper down the line. Because if you keep winning fights, you're going to be led down that road of more difficult opponents. So, and for Jordan Leavitt, I mean, yeah, there'll be someone along him. He's going to be a dad now, so congratulations to him. Took the fight on the day his wife was going into labor, so you'd have to think his mind wasn't all there coming into this fight either. So, we'll see what happens to Jordan Leavitt down the time. Look, and we're talking about guys coming into the UFC, Harry, and wanting them to be nurtured correctly. And I'm curious to hear what your assessment is on Peyton Talbott, his performance, and a fantastic win over Nick Aguirre by submission, rear naked choke, and move to 7-0. Also in the bantamweight division, a division that is like steeped in talent right now. What's your assessment on Peyton as a fighter, and how he should be built into that division?
Your man's going to struggle. He's going to struggle, lads. Looks like he hits hard. Really nice straight shots when he was on the feet, but can't defend a takedown. And when he's down there, fair play to him. He can survive, right? I think his positional awareness isn't great, but his submission awareness is really, really good. I know, like, Aguirre wasn't able to really lock up any meaningful or getting close to any meaningful submission attempts, but there was very little get up from Talbott. There was very little work from the bottom. Aguirre fought so strangely. Like, he was pulling guard and he was trying to tempt Talbott down. There were a couple of rib roasting shots that might have sapped some of the energy, but by the time we got to the final round, Aguirre was fucked, like properly gassed, and shot a panic takedown off a really nice bit of striking from Peyton Talbott, and Talbott just shocked off that double leg into mount, forced the back take, and we were done. Like, frankly, a pretty terrible performance from Aguirre all round. If you're able to take your man down and hold him for as long as possible, as long as he did, and land basically no damage or no submission offense, did we read the rules, or like, what's the crack? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we're in there to land damage and try and submit our opponents, right? So if positional control is great, don't get me wrong, it's lovely, all well and good. I think you got 4 minutes 30 in that first round. What do we do with it? Nothing.
Yeah, exactly. But 4 minutes 30, like, I mean, we're looking at, I don't know whether anyone's seen the Bellator card at the weekend, but, we basically seen AJ McKee win 3 rounds from bottom position. And it's like, you can have 4 minutes 30 of that control time, but if a guy on the bottom is landing damage, or he manages to get up to his feet and lands just one punch, you're scoring the round for the guy who landed that punch or landed the damage as well. And it's like, jeez, I mean, I found it very harsh today. Maybe I woke up and chose violence, but that's amateur level stuff. Like, I mean, the inability to get a fighter down and not land damage. I mean, those are problems that we shouldn't be seeing inside the UFC's octagon, in my opinion. But nonetheless, we did, and we move on to what's next for a guy like Peyton Talbott. Do you have a name in mind? Do you have an opinion on what you would like to see for Peyton Talbott next?
Ayman Zahabi.
Yep. I like it. That's a tough fight for him. I would say put it on in Toronto, but that card is pretty much full now at this stage. But yeah, strange. I don't. They didn't put Ayman Zahabi on that card, which was unusual. But I like that fight. I like a fight. It's a tough one, but like I said, we're going to be getting tough ones in the bantamweight division for guys like Peyton Talbott. 7-0 right now, and we'll see.
It's one of those things that if at 135 you're not well rounded, you're going to get 8 alive.
Absolutely, and even outside of the division, like that's what I mean. And like my assessment, really, Harry, on a guy like Chase Hooper, and the same here with Peyton Talbott, is based off the competition he's surrounded by. We were talking about absolute killers at 155, where Chase Hooper is fighting, and we're talking about 135, where there are no easy fights apart from maybe Nick Aguirre, who doesn't want to land any damage, right? He was lucky enough this time that they picked a guy that didn't want to lose any damage. But you're looking at the 135-pound division, from rank number 30 to 50 is solid, from number 30 to 20 is solid, 20 to 15. As you go up there is no easy fights at 135, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with Peyton Talbott. Someone who didn't fight in an easy fight was Amanda Ribas, who had to pull it out of the fire to get her win against Luana Pinheiro by TKO. Fantastic highlight reel knockout. That being said, a spinning wheel kick followed by punches. But here I go. I'm going to keep the trend here of harshness, Harry. I mean, we're papering over cracks here with a win like that, though, really, aren't we? If we really, really want to break that down, we're really papering over cracks here, aren't we?
Yeah, I thought that it wasn't the best performance by Amanda Ribas, and it wasn't the best performance by Luana Pinheiro either. Pinheiro hits very, very hard for the weight class. Really, really big looping right hand on her. But Ribas, like for the first round, they basically just kicked at each other for a while. Ribas couldn't get into boxing range at all. When she did, Pinheiro would land. Ribas looked very stiff. I question whether she had a right shoulder injury, because just the mobility in that right hand was just so strange and so limited. And she's not been the most flowy woman that we've ever seen in her actual fighting style, but even more so in this one, she looked stiff and she looked labored and felt like it was a really tough fight for her to get going in. Second round was far, far better from her. She managed to find a way into range. She was landing with some lovely low kicks. She had a couple of really nice left high kicks, a couple of really nice body kicks. She really beat up the legs of Pinheiro in the second round, and also did a good job of countering some of the straight shots from Pinheiro. Pinheiro was getting more and more tired as that second round moved on, and when we got to the third, Pinheiro was basically toast. And don't get me wrong, Ribas did absolutely beautifully to time that spinning back kick. We saw it just at the death of the second round, and I think she saw the opportunity for it was becoming more and more available. Landed it, beautiful right hand, beautiful left hook. It was a left hook right hand that sacked Pinheiro down, and we had some hammer fists. But the UFC will sell whatever fight is next for Ribas on that highlight reel. But I agree with you, there are holes there for sure. There are
holes there, Harry, but there have been holes, I feel, for Amanda Ribas in her past fights that we're just not seeing being patched up, and it doesn't seem that she's making any leaps or bounds. It doesn't seem that we're seeing her level up her game in between fights, and that to me is quite worrying as well, to be honest. Two people's trajectories that are kind of, and it's easy to make this comparison because I think they both fought, and was Amanda Ribas and Macy Barber. And they did fight in Ribas's last fight, and that was a loss to Macy Barber. But I think that result and that fight itself showcased, both of these women the way they've come into the UFC, and both have had highs and both have had lows. But what we've seen is, the ability of Macy Barber to kind of level up and to kind of enhance her skill set in between fights. And my assessment on the situation is I don't think that we've seen that all that much with Amanda Ribas. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, I mean, Ribas is a strange fighter, right? Where she finds ways to win fights without looking great, which is an amazing attribute to have, frankly. Like, if you can pull wins out when you're not on your best night, that's amazing stuff. But like you say, I would like to see just a little bit more elevation in her skill set. I'd like to see more investment in her hands. I'd like to see her move away from the heavy kick game that she has. And like, don't get me wrong, when you're landing spinning wheel kicks, it's tough for me to say that, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's I think let me just move on to who I wanted to fight next. And
yeah, let's go.
I want Lucie Pudilova next
for Amanda Ribas.
Damn right.
Yeah. I like that. I like that.
And I want it because Lucie will either stand in the pocket and bang, and she hits very, very hard. And so Ribas will either be able to navigate those waters and show Lucie Pudilova that she needs to go back to being a well-rounded MMA fighter, or Lucie will come in and have made more improvements that we have seen her make over the last few fights and will really put a beating on Amanda Ribas. Or Lucie Pudilova will come in and be like, yeah, that's grand. Watch me wrestle fuck you for 3 rounds and I'll sub you whenever I want. And, that is an interesting prospect to me. It's a ranked opponent for Lucie Pudilova. And, I like that fight for Lucie Pudilova. And I also...
Is Lucie not ranked after beating Talbott,
Is she at 15 or something?
She could be. Yeah, she could have entered in there. I'll check that real quick. But
thanks. I appreciate it.
I like that stylistic matchup for someone like Lucie Pudilova. I definitely think she's worked herself into kind of a fight like that. Someone with a solid name like Amanda Ribas. So just give me 1 second here. The rankings are just coming up, and we have flyweight. Lucie Pudilova is at strawweight at number 11, and Amanda Ribas is at number 10. Harry, it's like you manifested that fight. It's the perfect fight, the perfect opportunity for Lucie to go into the top 10, and yeah, I like it. Let's do it. Moving on. Here we go now, Harry. The butchering shall begin for this one. Myktybek Orolbai defeated Uros Medic by submission via neck crank. And yeah, I mean, UFC debutant came in very, very emotional after this one. Obviously, this one meant quite a bit. Took this fight on short notice, working with Uriah Faber at Team Alpha Male as well, and came out and took out Medic in a pretty good performance in the welterweight division. I mean, on short notice, picking up a second round neck crank submission win. Ticked off a few boxes there, Harry. What were your thoughts?
I like this fella. He drowned Medic, him. It was gorgeous. Like, it was, if you were to teach MMA grappling, this is how you teach it. He was constantly looking to knee ride. He was constantly looking to hip ride, thigh ride. He was constantly looking to strip posts. He was allowing Medic to get up as he landed damage just to take him back down again. He was looking to look for chokes whenever he could. He was looking for Dagestani handcuffs that he could land more damage. His head position was great. He was just relentless. And yeah, fucking hell, like, this fella, he probably isn't going to get a title, or he's probably not going to be looking for 1-digit numbers ranked next to his name, but we're going to have some serious fun with him. I think he's a good, solid fighter, and Uros Medic is not a guy to play with, and he certainly didn't fucking play with him. And right, if your man is getting a neck crank submission with no hooks, he's got a squeeze on him.
Absolutely. I was more impressed with the way he handled a guy like Uros Medic, who is no pushover whatsoever, and he did so excellently. Who would you have him in there next with?
Joaquin Buckley?
Oh, yes. Give me some of that, son. Yeah, give me some of that. I love it. 170. Let's do it. I'm not even going to say his name again because I got it exactly right and I don't want to butcher it for the second time, but he is some man for one man, and I'd love to see him against Joaquin Buckley. I'll tell you who's some man for one man as well, and that's Joanderson Brito. It was a phenomenal performance by Brito. And we see another neck crank again. Is this the year of the neck, or the ninja choke? Not the neck crank, excuse me. The year of the ninja choke, Harry. Joanderson Brito took out Jonathan Pearce by submission, round 2. Yeah, pretty straightforward win for him in the end. I think really it was a good performance. What did you think of it?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I thought Pearce was doing a good job in the grappling, was doing a good job of reversing situations. Brito, for all of his power and explosion, was being shown that when you're on bottom, that shit doesn't really work, right? But Pearce got a bit cocky, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that. I was like, he had to eat the biggest amount of crow that I've probably ever seen a fighter eat inside the octagon, where he was shouting down at him. I think Brito was complaining about maybe a shot to the back of the head, and Pearce was like sneering him, saying, well, get up and do something about it. Get up and do something about it. Well, guess what? He fucking got up and he did something about it, didn't he, Harry?
He really did, yeah. Like, it's one of those sneaky subs that if you are just a little bit lazy with your head position and somebody locks it up, it's really hard to hand fight from there. And it was just really unfortunate that Pearce was sort of already against the cage, because generally you'd bail to your back to take some of the pressure off that ninja choke and allow yourself to start the hand fight. But as he bailed into the cage, and that's a tough spot to land.
Do you think that would your assessment on that submission be more opportunistic, or do you think that Brito was kind of trying to angle him towards that? It looked like he was trying to set it up while he was getting to his feet. He kept that whizzer on a little bit to kind of, that kind of basically set it up for him really in certain terms. But what was your assessment on the actual finish of the ninja choke itself?
It looked more opportunistic.
Yeah,
more opportunistic to me, mostly because I think as Brito realized that Pearce wasn't going to finish the single leg, he was like, "Ah, fuck it, sure, I'll try and choke him," because Pearce's head started to rise. And as Brito snuck his arm underneath, I've just punched my microphone as I was making the angle there.
Harry's going to put his mic in a ninja choke there now.
Indeed, yeah, I am. My mic's fucked now. It's done snapping immediately. Yeah, like, it's one of those things that you have to wrap it. You have to wrap it quickly. And he did, right? He opened up his body really nicely and sunk the choke in over the top and put his chest back over it. And yeah, it did look a little bit more opportunistic to me, but I'd love to ask him. I'd love to find out if he was actually looking for that on the way up. That would be very, very interesting.
I trust your opinion, and yeah, I probably would say that it is more opportunistic. Do we have anyone for Brito, or do we want to move on?
What about Leroy Murphy?
Oh, giggity. Like that one. I like that one. Let's do it. Okay. Moving on to Jose Johnson, who defeated Chad Anhelinger by submission, a rear naked choke here in round 3. Any quick thoughts on this? We'll blast through a couple of these really quickly.
It was another sort of comeback win, I guess, for Johnson. Didn't look fantastic in there, and just managed to find a way to fucking win. Fair play to him, really. Like, fair play to him. What do you want me to say? If you find a way to win, then you find a fucking way to win. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't. Again, he's another one that's going to suffer in this division, because there's a bunch of lads that are going to give him serious problems. But
I'm looking at a guy like Peyton Talbott coming in against the winner of this fight. To be honest, I think.
I got no problem with that. No problem with that.
It's not to take your mantle and matchmaking up next, or to jump ahead too far, but two guys that in the bantamweight division, are going to be beaten. They're not going to make too big of a run, and I would say that in both Chad Anhelinger and Jose Johnson. But fair play to Johnson, like you said, he found a way to win and he got the job done, and we'll see what's next for him. Christian Leroy Duncan finally, had his coming out moment inside the UFC, Harry, didn't he? He was the highlight of your severe spotlight this week. I'm going to hand it straight over to you to tell us why.
Fair play to you. Look, I think with a lot of fighters, the thing that interests me the most is what happens when they lose, right? It's what happens when they take a loss, and what happens when they returned from that loss. Now, Leroy Duncan has lost to amateur, but nobody even knows that he had like 48 amateur fights, right? Nobody knows because he had 9 professional fights and 9 professional wins. He stormed through to a Cage Warriors title, made a big splash in his debut, and then took a loss. Fine. No problem, right? He comes in here in what would have been, or what was in Denis Tiuliulin, a far harder assignment than the fella that he was going to come out to. The fella that he was coming out was a 4-0 ex-Glory kickboxer. Christian Leroy Duncan would have smoked that fella. Absolutely smoked him. He would have taken him down and just ragdolled him, I think. In this one, I thought he showed some really, really interesting characteristics. We saw the silky striking. We saw the silky footwork. We saw some nice head movement. We saw some grappling. We saw some beautiful head position in the grappling. We saw him mixing in damage with his grappling. Really, really opportunistic in some of his striking. Really, really advantageous fight IQ in some of the striking. Some beautiful shot selection. But then the wrinkle that really interested me is that he realized that Tiuliulin wasn't going to bend to his will, in that he wasn't going to just do skill for skill. Tiuliulin was going to bite down on his mouthpiece and just try and smash him every chance he got, because Tiuliulin had resigned himself to the fact that he was nowhere near the skill level of Christian Leroy Duncan. And so Duncan was going to have to really work him for it. And as we got to the end sequences, Leroy Duncan was like, fuck it then. I'm just going to hit him really fucking hard. And I'm just going to hurt him. I'm just going to punish him. And then I'm going to make sure that as he hits the canvas, he's not getting back up. And it's moments like that when you see a fighter switch, where Christian Leroy Duncan wants to do things beautifully. He wants to do things perfectly. He wants to land clean, crisp combinations where he's not getting hit. For him then to switch the mindset slightly to be like, cool, I'm going to bite down on my mouthpiece a bit here, and I'm just going to fucking punish this fella, and I'm going to make sure he goes away. I like that. There's a bit of meanness. There's a bit of rawness in there. And if you can pull that out of a fella like Christian Leroy Duncan, then we know that that's another facet to his game. That's another level that we can go to should he need it. And I like that. I like that a lot.
I like that a lot. And I also like the finishing sequence as well, where, sometimes, you have to make a decision as a fighter too, Harry, where, you're landing your punches on somebody and they're not having the level of effect that you would like to have them on. And you think you described that perfectly with Tiuliulin. And then you just get on the inside and you just start hammering elbows. And there's nothing you can do when you're taking shots like that. The finishing sequence was like something out of the Matrix. It was just, you said he likes to throw things perfectly. Well, we had a mixture of that aggression and that perfectness, I believe, in that finish. And it was just brilliant. And I'm very happy for someone like Christian Leroy Duncan that he got the opportunity to kind of finally showcase what he is about, who he is. And I think we're in for a fun road with Christian Leroy Duncan, because that win is going to give him the height of confidence. Like you said, coming in and winning against his original opponent would have been great. But the fact that he had to take this fight on short notice against a tougher opponent and went out and did what he did, massively, massively impressive. And, he's a guy that anytime that, we text in the group every now and again. And, I didn't know whether people was watching or not. Like, I text the group when Christian Leroy Duncan was on. I was like, this guy is on now, because I feel you almost have to tune in and see him. He's just, his flow movement, his striking is sensational. And, I'm excited to see what's next for him at 185. And I'm excited to see what you think should be next for him at 185.
Roman Kopylov.
Oh, yes. You're talking about a bit of that. You're not. I'm after losing myself here. Compose. You're talking about a bit of nastiness. There's a bit of nastiness involved in that matchmaking too, because you have your opinion on a guy like Roman Kopylov, and you feel that this would be a horrible matchup for him. This is the fight where he gets found out, Harry. Is that what your matchmaking? Look at this grin on your face and you're nodding your head. You love this one. What's your thought process behind that? Sure, probably what I've already said.
Because when Kopylov comes in and tries to spam left high kicks, Christian Leroy Duncan is going to send him to the fucking shadow realm.
Yeah, I love it. I know that you don't like Kopylov as a fighter, so that's why I'm laughing at that as well. That's a fantastic matchup. Let's see it because I just want to see Harry enjoy that.
for me.
Yeah, for Harry. Let's make that happen for Harry. Moving on, our guy Mick Parkin went on and fought Caio Machado. I think the only thing we can say about this fight is I'm glad it wasn't the third fight from the top of the card in the middle of the main card. It was underneath. I think Parkin was not himself in this fight. He didn't look as smooth or as silky in this fight as we've seen in the past. And Machado, he's just not that great, to be honest. He leaves himself massively open for shots on the feet, has an inability to take the fight down, and I feel that he's going to be in a tough old spot in the heavyweight division where, you know, challenges and opponents like this are few and far between, and without being too without talking down his hopes too much, I think he's kind of a little bit lucky that Mick Parkin seemed to me that he had an off night going in there. Harry, what are your thoughts?
I think Mick Parkin won this via gas tank. Parkin was clearly in a better physical condition. Maybe he wasn't tuned into the fight, couldn't get himself going. That's fine. But by the time we were in round 3, Caio Machado was fucking bollocks, and Mick Parkin still had a bit of gas left, and that's what took him through. And that's a good sign for Mick Parkin in his early stages of his career, that he is still, you know, relatively early in his pro career. He can find a way to win through having put the work in camp, having put the preparation in camp, road miles, the air dyne, whatever it is he's using for his conditioning. It obviously paid off and paid off well. So fair play to him for that. But yeah, Caio Machado is just not a great fighter. Like, I don't know what you want to say. Not a great fighter.
What's next for Mick Parkin? Excuse me, I was struggling to get my mic off mute there.
This might be a horrid one, but what about Muhammad Usman?
Oh, yeah, I don't hate it. I don't hate that at all. I don't hate it at all. It's a name. It's a winnable fight. But he's got to be performing a little bit better than what we've seen in there on Saturday night, it has to be said. I don't know. But compared to his first performance to that one, it was like chalk and cheese. The guy that did perform very well was Jeka Saragih, who went out and took on Lucas Alexander and knocked him out in the very first round with a vicious right hook and punches up against the cage. Massively impressive win there by Saragih.
Yeah, it was a come from behind win. There's so many come from behind wins on this card. Alexander was landing well, loads of teeps, load of low kicks, clipped him a few times. Saragih was really looking for that right counter, couldn't find it. There was an exchange up against the fence, and as Lucas Alexander got up and turned away, Saragih sort of followed him really, really nicely, cut the cage off and landed a beautiful right hand. And one of the worst celebrations that I had, big egregious problems with that celebration. I don't need to see that at all. Well,
we're getting into the territory of dodgy celebrations as well. We'll talk about Ailin Perez in just a minute, but
sure will.
Saragih, what was his celebration? It's escaping me. Right now.
He was just a horrid dance. Horrible dancing. Bad dancing. Awful stuff. Awful.
Stick to the fighting, Saragih, not and leave the dancing. I wouldn't even say leave the dancing to Ailin Perez, because I probably wouldn't do that either. What would you think of this fight, Harry? It wasn't really a great fight. Ailin Perez versus Lucie Pudilova from SBG. You know, I've seen Pudilova fight much, much better than what she did there. Not really a good performance, not her best night at all. And Ailin Perez, who went in and who had seemingly gotten into a fight before she even entered into the octagon. Did you hear about that? At the UFC Apex, herself and Jocelyn Edwards got into a little bit of a tiff in the Apex, which left Ailin Perez, you know, she came into this fight with a black eye. She came in with a shiner already after an interaction with Edwards in the Apex. So interesting to see what happens there. I mean, that fight really makes itself if they haven't fought already. Have they? No, they haven't. So maybe, yeah, that might happen. But this, not really too much to speak about on this fight, Harry. It wasn't really anything to write home about.
Pudilova, shite on bottom, great on top. Third round, Pudilova looked great. She was smashing Ailin Perez up when she was on top, but just couldn't keep her off her on bottom. Just to cover up the Saragih fight, Nathaniel Wood needs a layup. Saragih versus Nathaniel Wood. Thanks,
yeah. Sorry, I forgot to go here for that.
Perez versus Pudilova, who gives a shit is the honest answer. Like,
Yeah, make that Jocelyn Edwards fight. There's the story that is there as well. So last 2 fights of the night, a little bit of controversy surrounding this one. Harry, curious to hear what you think. The fight was stopped in the 3rd round after a pretty dominant performance by Trey Ogden, it has to be said, on the lead up to that finish. Found himself in round 3 in a head and arm choke. Mike Beltran, the referee, called for action a couple of times, didn't get the response that he was looking for from Nikolas Motta. Subsequently went to stop the fight, and Motta springs up, says he was okay, and the fight was called a no contest. Just a massive, massive error in this fight, Harry.
I really didn't like this one. There is look, the issue for me is this. Motta wins the 1st round. Ogden wins the 2nd round. Ogden is obviously winning the 3rd round. Obviously, it's a very legitimate head and arm. For sure. Motta was deep in there, but it looked to me like Motta had his chin tucked inside the choke, which certainly makes it a little bit harder to finish. MMA guys are always tough, right? They're never going to tap the subs that aren't 100% on. We have seen that, in nauseum before. But specifically with this one, the excuse that seems to be bandied about is that Motta went limp. He didn't go limp.
He didn't go limp, not even in the slightest.
He was pushing up the elbow, right?
Yes.
One of the things that you can do, right? I certainly wouldn't. I've told, if I was in the corner of Motta, that's not the defense I would have told him to be looking for. Not that he'd heard me, whatever. But I would be. He was physically trying to lift the choke off his neck and push it up onto his face, right?
And if that doesn't remove the position, it at least kind of stops some of the pressure on the neck area.
A little, yeah, a little. I mean, because essentially when you're finishing a head and arm choke, your own shoulder is driving into your carotid artery and your partner's bicep is flexing into your second carotid artery, right?
Mm-hmm.
So pushing up at the elbow, it takes some of the asphyxiation off, but it doesn't take the blood choke off, really, right? Unless you could push it up enough that it's now on your jawline and not on your neck.
Mm-hmm.
They were sweaty. It was the 3rd round. Who's to say if Motta could have peeled it or not? We don't know. Maybe that was his primary level of defense. He was really going to try and gut that. He was going to try and wear Ogden down a little bit. If he didn't feel that was the case, he might have moved to giving his back or whatever it is. Anyway, those are by the by. He had a defensive hand in place, right? He had a defensive hand in place. And at no point did I see him, when Michael Chiesa fought Kevin Lee.
Yeah.
And Kevin Lee was looking for the rear naked, and Chiesa literally relaxed his whole body in order to try and bring his elbows inside and fight for the rear naked choke. That didn't happen.
No.
Right?
But even when Mike Beltran made the decision to stop the fight, when he pulled on the elbow, the guy was pulling his elbow back.
Right.
He was showing that. And I mean, you've got to, it's such a difficult position to be in if you're a referee, but you've got to at least recognize those things.
Right.
It's just, and now we're dealt with the problem that Trey Ogden kind of highlighted, and rightfully so, in his post-fight interview, is that, this is a no contest, and half of these guys' pay is gone immediately. You're only getting your show money, and I hope that is rectified. But, we got to expect better, and we've got to hope for better in these situations, Harry. And it's been quite a trend this year. I think we've seen it, especially in the UFC, quite more often this year than we have in previous years, where referees just jumping the gun a little bit in these kind of positions.
Look, I will always err on the side of caution when it comes to striking finishes, because we don't need to take too much damage for our fighters. But when it comes to things like chokes, when it comes to things like strangles, just let it play out a little. Just let it play out a little. We are doing less damage to our brain if we do go out from a choke than if we're getting hammered into the canvas with hammer fists. Just allow it, just a touch. I'm not saying just let every fighter go unconscious if he's not going to tap. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying, though, is for these certain situations, let it go another beat or so. Really try and pull at the arm of Motta to make sure he's still engaged. Don't just give it a 1. How often do you see referees, they pull and then they reassess the situation, they pull again, and they reassess the situation, they pull again, and then if on the 3rd pull they're still not getting anything, then they'll call the fight, no problem. That's fine, no problem, right? But he pulled, and as you rightly said, there was tension in Motta's arm. He's fucking awake, right? He's fighting. If there's tension in his arm, he's fighting. And so leave him to it. This one was difficult for me to justify.
Obvious kind of sentiment here, Harry, when I say this as well. But to anyone who's saying that, if the referee is asking for a response, he should give a response. Well, anyone who says that, I don't think has ever been in a position like that, because you're concentrating, you're fighting, because you're talking about millimeters there being a difference, and your ultimate focus is on kind of getting yourself into a better position, easing the choke, easing some of the squeeze. You're not concentrated on giving a referee a thumbs up. You're not concentrated on trying to react the way a referee wants you to react. I think the onus is on the referee to understand the position, understand movements, and understand, when a body does go limp and when a body is okay. Because if he was gone limp, I think we would have seen those signs. We would have seen the force of that elbow drop down a little bit. He had one leg lying straight. He had another knee up. We would see that leg go limp as well. It's just a shame that this is a thing. Look at them. We can bitch about the referee, or we can look at the overarching kind of problem with this, and that's the show and the win money that needs to be changed. You know what I mean? People want to talk and point fingers, but we're not in these situations if we have some straight payouts going out. Never mind your show money and your win money. But look, that's a conversation for another day. Last but not least, Harry, okay, I mean, talking about what's next for both of these guys, you're probably going to do that rematch again. On to the final fight of the card. And that was a good performance and a good win for Rafael Estevam, who took out an always game Charles Johnson to move to 12-0. Were you impressed with this guy's performance?
I really was. Yeah, I really, really was. I was very impressed with his ability to dominate the grappling exchanges with a really, really good grappler like Charles Johnson. I thought he mixed his damage in well. I'd like to see a touch more damage, but I understand, when you're fighting Charles Johnson, he's trying to scramble up to his feet all the time, and so that's difficult. I totally understand that. But for a guy as young in his career as Estevam is, I was very, very impressed. Yeah, I was very, very impressed. I'm going to jump right in, and I'm going to ask whether Jeff Molina's too soon.
Jeez, I don't. Jeff Molina is a name I haven't heard in quite some time. Why is that? Did he get this? He's suspended, isn't he? Did he get somewhat caught up in that gambling controversy?
Oh, sure, you might be right.
Yeah.
Fuck. Well, that screws that one out then. Yeah. I just thought from a stylistic perspective, Jeff Molina, loads of lovely leg kicks, can do a bit of defensive grappling himself, really nice jab on the man. And so, Estevam was able to time some really lovely level changes underneath that Charles Johnson jab. I wanted to see that from a styles perspective, but fuck, well, I don't know. I haven't got any options then. Sorry, lads. What a way to end that podcast. Sorry, lads.
Yeah, I mean, I googled Jeff Molina and there's different headlines coming up of him being outed as bisexual, but yeah, nothing about the betting controversy. But I'm almost certain that he was involved in something along those lines, or might have been suspended for a period of time. But look, maybe we'll come back with some more concrete evidence rather than speculate here at the end of the balance breakdown. But that is it. With another one in the books, another UFC Apex show. We have another one on the way on December 2nd. We have a weekend off of UFC action this coming weekend. And we will be back to discuss Beneil Dariush versus Arman Tsarukyan, and what a fight that is, and what a great card that is on December 2nd, which will lead us up into the UFC 296 card as well. So we're going to finish strong here on the balance breakdown. And thank you all for listening. Check out Harry Powell at BJJ_Harry Powell, and myself at O'Neill MMA. We appreciate, we love you all. Thank you for listening, and we will see you the next